where not just women are in danger, but all marginalized people, where being uniquely different right now might truly be considered a crime. It seems as though we had all slipped into a false sense of comfort, that justice would prevail and that good would win in the end. Well, good did not win this election, but good will win in the end. So what today means is that we are far from the end. Today marks the beginning of our story. The revolution starts here. The fight for the right to be free, to be who we are, to be equal. Let's march together through this darkness, and with each step, know that we are not afraid. That we are not alone. That we will not back down. That there is power in our unity, and that no opposing force stands a chance in the face of true solidarity. And to our detractors that insist that this march will never add up to anything,
Boston Red here with Friday Java, a weekly magazine of political theory, polling, and commentary. It is part of the history called people that make up this fascinating journey. We are part of the Obama network. For that, we make no apologies. What we pledge to do is give you the facts on a bridge to history. What body politics is, the most up-to-date theories of political science and psephology. Stay tuned for this incredible ride. Boston Red, peace out. Friday Java on the 12th of October 2018, beaming from WBRN Radio and on the Boston Red Network. We have been the last few days doing some debates from various places. Our latest debates from the Rust Belt of the U.S. Indiana, the Senate race there between Donnelly and Mike Brune, is it Brune? I think it is. And we also have the governor's debate from Minnesota between Johnson and Walz. Johnson being the Republican candidate. He ran in 4 years ago against the current governor, Mark Dayton. And, of course, he lost that race. He is from the metro area, a county commissioner in the Twin Cities. And Walz is a congressman from the 1st District of Minnesota. That is down in the southern part of Minnesota. He represents the Mayo Clinic area. He is in what is called Greater Minnesota. And that was where the debate took place for Greater Minnesota. Farmers, ranchers, I'm not sure about ranchers, but nonetheless farmers, rural areas, etc., where the Republicans hope to do better. Now, the 1st District's an interesting district down there. DJ Trump carried it in 2016. However, it voted for Barack Obama in 2008 and also in 2012. So a very interesting district there. We do have some polling out here, and I think there's an article, an op-ed article in the Times. We'll go to it, and then we'll do the polling, and we'll come back to our friends at the University of Virginia, Charlottesville. And as we normally do, we remember Heber Heyer, who was killed by white supremacists. This article on the Rust Belt is an interesting article in itself. We can find it. Is the Rust Belt still a Trump country? Democrats are leading in many profile races, but there are low visibility elections that carry exceptionally high stakes. Now, this is by Thomas Edsel. What is this, Edsel? Oh well. Anyway, Democrats are poised to win every Senate and governor race throughout the Midwest this fall, and they're expected to pick up House seats in the region too. But in their bid to win control of the Midwest Senate, state legislatures, bodies that will have the power to gerrymander congressional, state Senate, and House districts after the 2020 census, they face a tough to crack a Republican firewall. Democrats lead in the major state races, as in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, and Wisconsin. This is a kind of return to historic type of elections. Pennsylvania, remember covering it when Hillary the Monster Clinton won the Pennsylvania primary. It's a command and control state. Barack Obama has won Ohio, and Ohio used to be the key for every Republican. G.W. Bush won it in 2004 in his re-election bid. Now, whereas Michigan and Wisconsin, they have a history of being Democratic strongholds, with the exception of Michigan being taken over by right-wing Republicans under the leadership of Gateway Snyder, and then turning the place into a right-to-work state. And after the Depression, of course, the UAW was a diminished power. Mr. Edsel goes on to say, I hope I pronounced his name correctly, the Electoral College has provided the impetus for DJ Trump's election. Now, if we, along with Minnesota, Indiana, and Illinois, a total of 13 governorships and Senate contacts, we covered the Senate race in Indiana, barring unforeseen events, and you do have some of those. But at this time, we have a downturn in the stock market going on. Over 1,000, I think it's close to 1,300 points had been lost in the last 2 days. Democrats in the region will make gains on election day, from state-wide contests to House elections to state legislatures. It's difficult to underestimate the political importance of the Midwest. The region was not only critical to Trump's victory, it has been critical to continual conservative control of both branches of Congress. Political scientist from Michigan State University, Matt Grossman, some interpret 2016 as beginning with possible realignment of the Great Lake Midwest, with the European working class leaving the Democratic Party. But this year, Senate races in those states are not even competitive for the Republicans. On Wednesday, Nate Silver, Dr. Silver over at the 538, tweeted out, by far the Democrats' strongest region in the Senate, plus governors, plus House polling has been in the Midwest. I don't think you'd really gather that from the totality of the reporting, which tends to fixate on demographic changes and therefore finds races in the South. Well, the races in the South, it's a little different type of reporting. And of course, in the West, you're talking there probably about Montana. Those areas you don't see as much. If you talk about the South, from Georgia to North Carolina, more Georgia this time, and you go to Texas, That race, we'll get to the polling here in a minute. According to both Democrats and Republican operatives, Republicans' difficulties in the region stem in part from the trend amongst many Obama 2012 and Trump 2016 voters to switch back to the Democrats. No doubt about that. You are seeing switching there, but there has been switching the last few years. In 2000, you had a different situation there. Florida was able to bring it in, and the Supreme Court decided that election for G.W. Bush over Albert Gore of Tennessee. Now, Albert Gore came from Tennessee. He used to be a senator from Tennessee, and of course he was vice president for 8 years. And that election was lost by a little over 500 votes coming out of Florida. And after the election was over, they discovered a box of votes, roughly 1,500 votes in an African-American precinct. It was too late. Then the election was over. The Republican consultants was less pessimistic about Trump's Midwest prospects in 2012. The Trump doubters, he argued, are open from either side in the 20s. They are certainly still open for Trump, depending on who the Democrats put up. Well, it's too early to talk about that. We don't know. We've heard about some of the prospects, as one would say, everywhere from the Twitter king, the former mayor of the urban ghetto that he left behind of Newark, New Jersey, that is now being improved by the day, literally, under its new mayor, new politics there in Mayor Baraka in Newark, New Jersey. Cylinder Lake, as a Democratic poster there, agrees that while in 2018 Trump's victories in the Midwest are not paying off, Democrats should be more weary of 212 in the Midwest and nationally. Republicans, especially Trump, are ahead of the on economy and on trade. Well, the trade situation is a very tenuous situation with tariffs. Cylinder Lake, as usually, is misreading the palm leaves here. And the economy itself is very, very tenuous. One of the things that is happening here, because of the type of economy Trump has, a high deficit pickup economy, in other words, the tax cuts for corporate and for the upper class voters, and not a 1% or 2%, but still at the same time, that does drive up deficits, if deficits matter at all. And in the short term, they don't, but in the long term, they are left to millenniums, and millenniums know this. Now, also at the same time, when you have job creation, you have the official unemployment rate at about 3.7, participation rate at about 60.1, which is good for an industrial economy such as the U.S. That means effectively 40% of the people are not participating. But then you, of course, have baby boomers, people retired, your children, etc. Nonetheless, you still have, with job creation and with shortages of workers, etc., with some raises in terms of compensation, wages, there, you will have inflation. And with the tariff program, the Walmarts and various people, they raise their prices on various things because it costs them more, and that's passed on to consumers and more inflation. So I would not term the economy in October 2018 as a great economy, period. We have to look and see where that goes. Let me finish up with the lake here. More immediate lake cautions. We need to watch men who seem to be moving towards Trump in the last week. Well, no doubt about that. We'll be watching that. We have some polling out, which we'll go to in a minute, referring to the aftermath of Kavanaugh, was known as the Kavanaugh bounce. We're seeing some of that in Texas. The up and down there, Beto O'Rourke was within 2 or 3 points. Now he's as many as 8 points by some polls behind. But again, that is a red state. A blue wave, however, will have to rise above the Republican breakwater. The Senate and House districts in the Midwest governed by the Republican Party after 210. Now, a lot of 210, President Obama had been elected, was based upon a number of things, primarily a racist animus towards Barack Obama. And they were able to use this at the local level in their continuous campaign against Obamacare. Those are some things. Take Ohio in 2009, before the 2010 wave, Democrats controlled the state house by 53 to 46. Now, if you look at that, you got 7 points there, or 7 delegates. That is really not a lot. Now, this year, Republicans controlled 66 to 32. A lot of rural counties there, and some of those extra birds around Cleveland and those places. In 2009, Democrats held a majority of state legislative seats in Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, 346 to 320. That's only a 23-vote advantage. That is not a lot. In 2018, Republicans controlled 415 seats to 245. That's a 107-vote seat majority. But again, that is out of a lot of rural areas. And if you look back at Michigan, you had the militia movement in Michigan. You've had a lot of problems in Michigan because of displacement there, the automobile industry almost going under, and a lot of people being unemployed in Michigan. But Barack Obama carried Michigan twice. But when the Republicans had their wave on the Gateway Snyder, they were able to get majorities in the legislature in Michigan. And that brought about the right-to-work state. Now you have a resurgent of activity, particularly progressive activity, around places like Flint, Michigan, etc. And we'll just leave this article where it is. Let's go to... we'll go to the crystal ball here. We have two out here on the 10th of October. New polls. Reema's in big trouble in Illinois. He's been in big trouble in Illinois. McCaskill and Hockley locked in a tie in Missouri. They've been pretty close to a tie all along here. Claire McCaskill running along here with her race. And it may all turn down to turnout. One of the things to look at in Missouri is, if you recall, especially the people in Missouri, the right-to-work campaign down there, that many observers would have assumed that the Republicans had enough, and they were the ones sponsoring that right-to-work amendment as a referendum, a state issue, would have been able to win it. They did not. Over 60% of the voters voted against it in Missouri. And if those voters can be utilized to Claire McCaskill, this race will turn out a bit different. In Illinois, J.B. Precker, I probably mispronounced it, leads Reema's. He's been leading Reema's all along. 50% to 30% amongst likely voters in the gubernatorial race. Missouri, the Attorney General there, and Claire McCaskill, of course, they are tied up. What the Crystal Ball has done, they have teamed up with the Reuters polling organization, ISIS, who used to be Roper. He used to work for Roper. Anyway, the two polls were conducted online and featured 968 likely voters from Illinois, 1,111 likely voters from Missouri. The Illinois poll was conducted September 27 to October 5th. It's an older poll, but we'll be looking at, we'll go to some newer polling here. During the recent battle over Kavanaugh, ultimately a successful confirmation to the court, McCaskill voted no. on the confirmation there. The poll asked respondents whether McCastle's vote made them more likely or less likely to vote for her. 44% said they were much more likely, 31% said somewhat more likely, and 13% to vote for McCaskill because of opposition to Kavanaugh. 46% said they were much less likely, and 39% somewhat less likely, and 7% were tied. So that's sort of where the polling went there, and the newer polls out it didn't really make much difference. They've been in the margin of error, are tied in many, many polls. Given this poll showed that as effectively in a tie, smaller in the more recent polls because of the sharp partisan divisions and mixed independent feelings and the perception of McCaskill and Kavanaugh. Not much of Kavanaugh bounce there, however. Both polls are featured name third-party candidates in each race. In Illinois, Remus is likely being hurt by the presence of a state senator there, McCann, Sam McCann, a Republican running as a conservative alternative. Yeah, I don't think that matters that much. Remus was in the tank before anybody came. He's attracting us, the McCann, 6% of the vote. And the cross-tags indicate he is winning 10% of the vote from self-described Republicans, but only 3% from self-described Democrats. Libertarian candidate also is there, Grayson Crusher. Jackson gets 3% of the vote. So there are some other characters in there. Democrats hold 11 of Illinois' 18 House seats, but they are targeting 4. That should have happened a long time ago. Illinois has been a state and a lot of problems out of Chicago, demographic problems out of Chicago. The current mayor in Chicago, who is not running for re-election the next time around, and the dismantling of many of those precincts that at one time were populated by African Americans when the housing there was raised. So those things have contributed to it, and also the state of African American politics in Chicago, particularly the influence of right-wing ministers on the populace there in Chicago. That is the problems that have caused much of the problems in Illinois. And like in Ohio, the Democratic Party had not been under the strongest leadership. The governor they had came out of the Harold Washington administration, but he was a very unpopular governor, and Remus slipped in. Illinois and Missouri have historically ranked as two of the great bellwether states in national politics. Both have voted for winning presidential candidates in 25 of 31 elections since 1869. Well, Abraham Lincoln came out of Illinois. Anyway, the two states which share a long border separated by the Mississippi River have become mirror opposites on different sides of the national political divide. Hillary Clinton won Illinois by 17 points, with D.J. Trump winning Missouri by 18.5 points, and yet the states have each elected a key statewide official from both parties in recent years. McCaskill winning a second term in a landslide in 2012 against, of course, that was that weak opponent there. This Pat Quinn character was the guy that was beaten in 2014, but now both are in danger of being defeated by challengers in a more dominant party. Remus he's a multimillionaire in the polls, and others is in deep trouble with McCaskill locked in a battle. But she was always locked in a battle. She got a gift the last time around. The approval rating of DJ Trump's predictable. Between the states, in Missouri, Trump has an approval rating of 50% and 49% disapproval. That is not great. He has reached at least a 50% mark. Meanwhile, approval rating in Illinois is under the water. It's 37% less than his national approval rating. So this is some of what is going on. Now, the Reuters Ipsos poll is collaborating this fall in several states, 5 states in the Sun Belt and 5 mostly Midwest states. Anyway, let's go to the next crystal ball. There are 2 of them out. And we get it. Hopefully we... Oops, that's the wrong one. Okay, Midwest, this is more Midwest, a midterm update from North Dakota goes to lean Republican, giving Republicans a clear edge in the Senate. This involves Heidi Heitkamp. Of course, she voted against Kavanaugh's confirmation. She's from from North Dakota, a heavily Republican state. Now, the Democrats do have a path to majority, but the path is almost certainly involves winning at least one race, but we currently rate as lean Republican North Dakota contest, and Tennessee or Texas. Texas would be the best chance. Some in Tennessee. Now, we see a new poll out that has Blackburn ahead by 10 points. We'll get that in a minute. They moved the rating in North Dakota from Heidi Heitkamp to lean Republican from a toss-up. Some polls had shown her down as much as 10%. Now, out in Alaska, that is a interesting contest out there. Bill Walker, who had been a Democrat running as an independent, there is a Democrat in the race there, so the vote is all split up, and the Republican likely there is ahead. Now, there's an open seat in South Dakota. It was likely Republican to lean Republican there. And if we go down, this is Republicans. This is a lot of Republicans in the House. Won't go into those. They basically have not changed. A lot of toss-ups with the Republicans, lean Republican, likely Republicans out in Alaska. We won't really go into those because there have not been any changes. Safe Republican is Safe Democrat, that's Lamb that won the upset. That is an open seat in Pennsylvania, 14. Toss-ups, Minnesota 1, that's where Waltz, that was a debate we covered. And Minnesota 8 is in northern Minnesota, Nolan, who ran for governor as a lieutenant governor candidate. So that seat is opened up. They're both called toss-ups. And the Democrats have several lean Democrat positions. Arizona 2, that was McSally. California 49, that was O'Darrell, Carlime, Isis. Kaufman in Colorado 6. Florida 27, that was Ross Latham's seat. Ron Blum in Iowa 1. Kevin Yoder in Kansas 3. And Michigan 1, that's an open one there. Jason Lewis, that's Minnesota 2. And Eric Paulson, Minnesota 3. North Carolina 9, that used to be Pettinger, it's open. New Hampshire 1, that was Shana Porter. And that was leaning Democrats there. And Nevada, number 3, that's open seat. That was Rosen, who was running for the Senate there, I believe. And PA 7, that was Dent. That is leans Democrat. And old Barbara Comstock, a character you want to get rid of. And then we have Rachel in Washington 8. Likely Democrat, that is O'Halloran, Arizona 1. Ari Barra, California 7. California 24. Murphy in Florida 7. Peterson in Minnesota 7. Gottenmeyer in Jersey 5. And Maloney in New York 18. So those are some. Alaska, they moved it over again. Ivan Moore's Alaska Survey Research has released a copy of a recent poll on the race. It has Dunleavy in the high 40s, Walker and Belich on the 30s. So there's two of them together. We're moving the race from toss-up to lean Republican. From lean Republican to likely Republican because of the split up vote there. Interesting enough that Dunleavy is in a better position than the state's at-large representative. Old Don Young's been around forever. Young's only receiving shade over 50% in each of the last two elections, but he won comfortably because of a third-party candidate. And that is where the third-party candidates have paid off in some of these elections. One of the debates we covered tonight, we had the Indiana Senate race between Donnelly, the sheriff there, and this guy, what was his name? Brome. I have to look his name up there, but anyway, nonetheless, and there was a libertarian candidate there, called herself "I Love Lucy." Was it Hampton? I have to look back at that particular one and see where she. I think it was Frampton. Anyway, Lucy Frampton. A third-party candidate there. Let's look at some of the polling here, and then we can go on. This is from Friday. This is from the New York Times. In Tennessee, they have Blackburn ahead by 14. If that is the case, Breezen at 40. The country singer Taylor Swift just came out for him, and Blackburn at 54. Not sure about that poll. Also in Texas, they have Lion Ted Cruz ahead by 8 points. If that is correct on old Lion Ted, that would be some Kavanaugh bounce going on there. And the Atlanta Constitution has Kemp. He's a Republican endorsed by DJ Trump, ahead of our own Abrams by 2 points. So it's still anyone's race there. And then in Florida, 27th, I'm not sure about that one. Salazar and Shalala, I think, by 2 points there. I think that's Donna Shalala. I believe she was running. Anyway, she was running. I'm not sure if that is her. And another New York Times Center poll, this is in Nevada, has Heller ahead by 2 points over Rosen. Rosen was at one time in the Congress. And an NBC News poll, Marxist University, Tammy Baldwin has finally moved out. She's 14 points ahead. Most of the polls I've looked at, she's had double digits leads. Out of Michigan, we have Mitchell Research, a solid poll. Debbie Stabenow ahead by 9 points there. And then we have a Quinnipiac poll. We have Lion Ted Cruz ahead by 9 points there with Beto O'Rourke 54-45. And UMass at Lowell has our own Elizabeth Warren ahead by 25 points. And another Mitchell research out of Michigan, governor there, Whitmire ahead by 8 points. And NBC News poll has Evans ahead by 10 over Boss Walker. And in California, we'll cover that debate this weekend, has Newsom up by 12. He should actually be up more than 12. 54 to right-wing Cox's 42 in California. Now, another Quinnipiac poll has Wheelchair Abbott ahead by 20 points over Valdez. Valdez, 38. She's out of Dallas. Used to be the sheriff there. And the Commonwealth for governor there, Baker over Gomez. That's an insult to intelligence. He's up by 39 points. Not sure what the Commonwealth voters are thinking about there. And out in Washington State, that is the 8th district out there, has Rossi ahead by 10. Rossi has tried to run for governor and run for various other things. And the Business Daily poll is wrong direction at 45, a right direction at 45, wrong track at 53. That's been constant. This is Thursday polling. I don't have any Friday morning polling here. This is ABC 15. Excuse me. Not sure what it is. McSally's up by 6 over Simmer there in that race. The Marquette University poll, that's a respected one in Wisconsin, has Tammy Baldwin up by 10. That's pretty much the average. Out of Ohio, Sherrod Brown is up by 18. It's not a race there. He's been in double digits in Ohio. In Minnesota, this is a special Senate election. Smith is up by 16 over Housley. This is for the 2-year term of Senator Franken. Amy Klobuchar is up by 30. And there's never been a race there. She's been in the high double digits, 25 or more. In Connecticut, Murphy is ahead by 15. In Rhode Island, White House is up by 24. A Marquette University poll has Boss Walker ahead by 1 point there. And Survey USA, WXIE TV has Kemp up by 2. That's in Georgia for the governor's race there. In Arizona, Ducey is up by 17 over Garcia. He's been up over Garcia all along here. In Ohio, Cadre is up by 6 according to this poll. This is a Suffolk poll here over DeWine. That race had been much closer. It's a little different now. And in Minnesota, that was a race we covered. This is NBC. Was on poll here. Has Waltz up by 17 over Johnson. That's the highest number I've seen yet. In Connecticut, Lamont is up by 8. And in Pennsylvania, 17. Oh, this is Mr. Lamb's up by 12. It's pretty much where he's going there. Reuters has old DJ Trump at 42. YouGov and Company has him at 43. It'd be interesting to see where his numbers goes if the economy continues to be down. So that was Wednesday's polling. And let me see. We go back to. We usually do this on the week, but was more polling out of Nevada has Heller ahead. This is NBC News poll. Only Laxall's ahead by 4. That was in Nevada. It's the governor's race, the Senate race. In Alaska, Dunleavy is up by 20. Bill Walker, we talked about him at 27. This is an Alaska Survey Research poll. And Bullich is up by heads 23, not up by 23. In Oregon, Kate Brown, this is the Oregonian poll. She's up by 4 over Buford. I guess is how you pronounce his name. And the Washington Post poll, don't see very many of those, have Hogan. This is out of Maryland, up by 25 over our own Ben Jealous. He's been in the double digits for a long time. This is Governor Hogan. And out of Virginia, Waxton is up over Comstock by 12 points. That's another Washington Post poll. And there are several lesser polls here. They really are not paying very much attention to. One Marmot poll out of Jersey, Sherrill up by 4 as a Democrat. Kelly up by 8, and that is a Pennsylvania 16. That's a New York Times poll. Zindon up by 8, and that is the 1st District of New York. Not certain where that one is. And that is our current polling where it is. And let me just do some housekeeping here. This is Thomas Partners Strategies. Republicans surge with enthusiasm, slightly eclipsing Democrat Newsom take a significant lead in the race for governor. The gas tax repeal effort is underwater. I guess it's not working out. This is KFI-AM, a talk radio right-wing station there. The race for governor is slipping away from Cox. It was never slipping towards Cox. Has Newsom up 55.3 to 40% for Cox. Newsom bounced to 54 this week with his second TV spot rotating throughout the state. Very costly situation. Cox likely has hit near a ceiling of the GOP vote, earning 87% of that block. The fight to tighten the race with NPP voters yet the survey reveals that Cox is losing his audience by 15 points. Cox is facing a challenging choice of options. Hug Trump, grow your share of GOP support, but also risk alienating your independent type supporters who disapprove of Trump by wide margins. So this is Team Newsom is watching to see if these numbers stabilize for 1 or 2 weeks in a row. If they are stable, that may afford Newsom the ability to run a purely positive campaign. But they continue to be. If they continue to bounce around, Newsom will likely be forced to go negative. The lieutenant governors, I think we hadn't really looked at it as to see where they are. Hernandez at 24. And I don't want to even try to pronounce this other name here. I think it's Greek. Typically, the partisans figure out which side to take. In the general, because of these characters here, Ed Hernandez to catch up slow with Esnes Grove. Hernandez is running a single contrast piece, 50% negative, 50% positive. Hernandez has limited resources. He has kept Esney from growing by driving up her negatives. Okay. With a Democrat on Democrat. Oh, it's a Democrat on Democrat fight. I see. All right. Anyway, the gas tax here, we've updated the ballot languages to accurately reflect what will be printed on the ballot. This week our survey reads Prop 6, it's called, to be on the water in almost every category. Most notable, only 39.6% of Republicans and 19% of no party voters are voting yes, and 41% no, and 29.5 are unsure of it there. The Trump impeachment one shows Californians choose not to impeach Trump, growing, as we heard, with 51% against impeachment, 39% in favor. Voter Infusi asked voters if they felt enthusiastic. Both party members were enthusiastic, but Republicans slightly overtaking Democrats by 1 percentage point. Very important to important, 96.1 and 94.6. I think it doesn't matter very much here what is going on. The voters believe Dr. Ford Kavanaugh, 50.1%. And these voters will, in California, will comprise an anti-Kavanaugh bounce, a reverberation, in other words, to 35.8 for Kavanaugh. I'm surprised it's not more than this, but again, this is this particular poll, and we found it here at Thomas Partner Strategies poll. This is October the 10th. This poll was taken. Try to bring in some West Coast news. We had quite a bit of it going on. And let me make sure that we don't have anything, as they say, left on the cutting table, so to speak. And we won't do this with this one. Let me just check our time here. Well, we're about out of time nonetheless. So we'll just bring this episode mercifully to a close of Friday Java on the 12th of October 2018. We'll have a numbers man, that is our macroeconomic program, coming up this weekend. And I'm not certain we'll have an open source report, but we will be covering more debates. We have the California governor's debate, the only one, an in-studio debate, a little different kind of debate, between Newsom and Cox. We'll have that up this weekend also. I'm not certain we'll have an open source report or not. We're trying. That's our technical report from WBRN and the Boston Red Network. What we're trying to do is get more tech news in, particularly as the baseball season is over. Oh, that is one of the things we want to look at here. We are now starting the League Championship Series here, and we started tonight. On a Saturday and Sunday, the Red Sox, of course, will be playing for the American League Championship Series, and tonight we have the Dodgers that will be in Milwaukee. That'll be an 8 o'clock game. The Brewers, that will be the National League Division Series. And on Saturday we'll have both teams. The Astros will be in Fenway Park playing the Red Sox. That'll be the 8 o'clock game. And the 4 o'clock game will be the Dodgers and the Brewers. That will be their game 2 on Saturday. And let me see. They will be no doubt off. And on Sunday, of course, we'll only have one game. That'll be at 7 o'clock. The Astros again in Boston. So that will be that game. Mr. David Price will be the starter, and Garrett Cole will start for the Astros. We didn't get the starters in here. Mr. Ryu will start the game 2, I suppose, with for the Dodgers, and Wade Miley will start for the Brewers. And tonight, who are the starters? Mr. Kershaw himself and Mr. Gomez will pitch for the Brewers. Obviously, the stratagem here is for the Dodgers to at least win one game. That's usually the stratagem in Milwaukee, and then go on to Los Angeles. This is the best of 7 series. Should be an exciting series, no doubt about it. And with the Red Sox, haven't seen the odds yet. I suppose we're looking at it here. The LA is at 1.7. The over-under is at 7.5. Scoring there. So the Dodgers are slightly favored over Milwaukee. Let me just look at both Sox here. The Red Sox. The Sox are negative 118, and the over/under is 7 here. With them, I'm surprised that the Astros are not favored. The Astros have a very, very good team. There's no doubt about that. They have hitting, and they have pitching, and Jason Lander will be pitching there, and this will be on Saturday. And Chris Sale will start for Boston, and then Mr. Price on the second. He didn't do well. David Price. He didn't do, the former Toronto pitcher, didn't do well in New York. He got shelled out of the game, but nonetheless, the Red Sox won the game. And there's a big problem in the division series. You have the best of 5, and if you lose 2 games, then you got to win 2 in a row. And the Yankees were down 2. They did win 1 game there, but the problem was 2 in a row. That was that one game. What was it? 16-1 or 16-2, and the final game in Yankee Stadium was, I believe, 4-3, and the Red Sox pulled that out. So that's just one of those things that you just don't survive. So the Yankees are back to drawing board, but they were a very young team, so we'll see where they go there. We usually favor the Dodgers in the National League, but no matter which team in the National League wins, whether it's the Brewers or the Dodgers, this American League is not going to be easy, particularly the Astros, because the Astros have a deep bench as far as their pitching, and at the same time, they have players. The Red Sox pitching is not bad. Chris Sale's a very good pitcher, and they do have some slugging power. There's no doubt about this. But this Brewers team in the National League definitely has a deep bench as far as their pitching, and they have some sluggers. The Dodgers, Ryu is a good pitcher, and Kershaw is good pitchers, but you go beyond them, it gets a little bit shakier. And of course, our Cubs are home watching it with us. This will do it for us. Have a good weekend, everyone.